Hello, my name's Ken Miller and welcome back to Practical 3. This is the practical. It starts on page 7 of the notes and we're going to learn how to create and edit charts in this practical. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Practical 3 tab and I'll have a nice empty page. What I've got is a little plus button here, and this is the easiest way to create a brand new chart. So I'm going to click the little plus button here and it's going to bring me into a window called the Chart Explorer or the Chart Creator. This is basically where we design, create and build everything that we look at. Now, we're going to concentrate on a couple of key elements within here. So first of all, we're going to start on our Data tab, and then slowly through the practical, we're going to start to work out what each one of these elements does. But first of all, I'm going to start with my sales data connection. So I've got two data connections in here. In this training course, you've actually got a sample little data repository data connection, but the main one that we're going to use is the sales data connection. And if I hover over here, it tells me I've got a total of 26 objects that I can use at the moment within this chart. The next most important part here is which axis I'm going to change. Now, by default, the dashboard is always going to try and draw a simple bar chart. Now, you'll see in a second, there's lots of other different chart types that we can create, but we always start with a simple bar chart. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select product. So product is going to appear on my x-axis. Now it's saying on the right hand side, this is our chart display, that it's not yet ready to display. And that's because I need at least something on the x-axis and something on the y-axis to draw this chart. So if I flip from my x-axis to the y-axis, notice down at the bottom the types of objects change, and that's because it's certain types of objects you're allowed to put on each axis. In this case, it's what we call a measure that we have to put on this axis here. Now I'm then going to select my call count, and with call count selected, it will now draw a simple bar chart on my right hand side page here. And with that bar chart, I can simply go ahead and save it and give it a name. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the chart type really quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select on chart type here, and these are all the different chart types that I could choose. So I can toggle around and I can decide exactly which chart type I want to display this data. In this case, I'm going to select a pie chart. One final thing to make this look like the notes, I'm going to go to my attributes section and we'll go through this in greater detail all together. But in the attributes, what I can do is I can show the data labels and actually put the numbers on the chart by ticking that box. So simply ticking on or ticking off will allow me to show or hide those elements. The final thing I've got to do, and I've got an exclamation mark up on the top here, is give the chart a name. So I'm going to call that call count by product. So call count by product. Little tick there validates it. I can only have one chart called one thing. So if I had a duplicate chart name, it would now be telling me I couldn't save that chart. But in this case, it's saying that the chart title is valid. I've got the save icon in the top left hand corner. I click save and it's going to save that chart down onto my page. Now, just like in Practical 2, I'm going to split my chart cell. And in this case, I'm going to split it from left and right. So click on that and I've got a new chart cell page here. Now, just as in the previous practical, when I've got something in the chart cell, my buttons aren't exposed. They're tucked away in the chart panel. But in this case, I've got my elements here, and I can go and again click create a new chart. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to create a line chart on the right hand side. So I'm going to go over, rather than just adding the data, I'm going to go straight to chart type and select line chart, because in this case I know I want to create a line chart. I'm then going to go back to my data, and on my x-axis I'm going to put date. Now if I couldn't find the object, I can really quickly start to search for it here and select date. On my y-axis I'm going to go in and I'm going to put my cancelled rate. Now I've got the filter in there so I can't see any of my measures, so if I just remove that, I can just select cancelled rate here and I'll now get a line chart showing me my cancelled rate by days, and we can see our cancelled rate is quite a volatile number. Up in the chart title here, I'm going to type a title, and I'm going to call it cancelled rate percentage by date. And again, I can see that that title is valid, and I'm going to save that chart. And that's all there is really to creating charts. So you should then end up with exactly what we have on page 7 of the notes. What we're going to do then is we're going to go back in, and rather than creating a new chart cell, so I could really quickly create a new chart cell and go and add a new chart, actually what we're going to do this time is we're going to edit the existing chart. And to edit the existing chart, we go into the chart tools, click the little config button there for edit chart. It brings us into exactly the same screen, but this time we're starting with the existing chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my chart type. So now rather than by product, I want to show a split down of the number of calls that I've made by salesperson. So with my x-axis labeled, I can either go and find by dropping down the salesperson, or I could type and search for salesperson. And all I have to do is click and toggle that, and it will now show me a chart by salesperson. So I can see all the different salespeople here, and I've got a section in the pie chart for each one of those. What I'm actually going to do is change this chart type from a pie chart into a column chart. So I'll now get different elements for each one of my salespeople. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that so it actually ranks from largest to smallest. So here it's just alphabetically ranked at the moment on my y-axis item. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a sort. So I go to the sort tab here. I click the little plus button. This time I'm going to drop down the little plus, and I've got all the different elements that I want to use here. And I'm going to stick with call count. So I could sort by something else, something that's not even in the chart. But actually what I'm going to do is stick by call count. By default, it goes from smallest to largest. And actually what I'll do is I'll go from largest to smallest. Now, that's great. I've got all of those in there. But what I want to actually do is just show my top 5 salespeople in terms of how much time they spend talking on the phone. So I'm going to go to filters this time. I'm going to click a plus on the item. Again, just as I did with the sort, I'm going to drop down my item I can pick from. Now, unlike sorts, I can actually use the dimensions, so the bricks and the hashes, the measures. But again, I'm going to stick with call count. Now, in this case, I could say equal to, greater than, less than. But what I'm going to pick in this case is my top 5 items. And if I just click away, that'll apply that as a filter. And now I've got a chart just showing me my top 5 items. Now, the chart name up here is saying call count by product, and that's actually because we created this chart from another chart, so the title isn't really valid anymore. So I'm going to change that title. So I'm going to change my title to Very Chatty Salespeople. Now, when I do that, I could just save this. But actually, because I've changed the chart title, I've got this button here as well. So I can now save this as a new chart. I'm going to show you exactly what happens here. So in the notes, it's encouraging you just to click the save button. And it means that you've got a very simple step because it will just overwrite the existing chart. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a new chart. And quite often you find in Panintelligence, when you come in, you'll use one chart as the seed to create another chart, just as I've done here. And in that case, rather than overwriting the existing chart, you would click Save as a new chart. Now, the first thing you'll notice here is my dashboard page is left exactly as it was. So it's not replaced my chart with the one I've just created, and it's done that intentionally. But if you remember back to Practical 3, we've got our chart library, and that's exactly where that's gone. So if I type Very and click on Chatty Salespeople, I'll then get that new chart on the page. And that's exactly what we're looking to create. So by the time you get to the bottom of page 11, you should have created a dashboard which looks exactly like this. Okay, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in Practical 4.